Folks, our first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant, is now available for you to learn at your own pace for just €50, and it comes with a certificate upon completion. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for more details. Support this podcast by supporting our sponsors. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is our final episode of what has been a fascinating conversation around the dangerous impact of using foreign microbes in coffee production. And I encourage you to check the show notes for this series because there is a lot of supplementary kind of reading that Andres Felipe has sent me. And there are RICO talks and scientific papers and a whole bunch of stuff that you can look at that will give you further learning in this subject. So I encourage you to do that. And I encourage you to get in contact with Andres Felipe if you want. His information will be in the show notes. And if you get a chance to go to one of the talks, go to one of the talks wherever they're happening around the world. And he kind of goes everywhere, don't you?
Yes.
I mean, just from the time that I met him to today, which is like the space of 2 weeks, he's been in like 6 different countries. So it's wild. So in our last episode of our series, Andres Felipe, we are talking about regulation around these microbes and regulation in coffee production, and I guess in wherever we end up, wherever this conversation takes us. So we're talking about local and international regulation. What does that regulation look like now, and where do we want it to get to?
Okay, just to say something. For example, I was telling you a little bit about some people telling me, oh, what are the proofs and so on and so forth about it. I've been in talk with the national authorities in Colombia and Costa Rica, because that's where I grow coffee, and I have the right of my farms to be free of those microbes, as is the right of any farmer. So we as farmers are sitting in our treasure, which are our microbes that will make us to produce coffees that are over 90 points. Okay, so I have the right to come to the authorities and tell them, hey, listen, this is happening, okay? And I've been lucky enough to be a scientist that is being heard by local authorities to different extents. We can say that there are some public servants that are very happy about knowing about this and are very eager to do something, while others are more like, well, whatever, you know? But in terms of law enforcement, at least in the case of Colombia, this is something that is illegal. You cannot bring foreign species and introduce them in the environment because of the ecological impacts that it can have. And it will not only impact the production of beautiful coffees in the future for the specialty coffee industry, which we are not going to be ever again able to produce if something goes really wrong. For example, affecting other industries. Let's say people is living out of conservation programs and they have a beautiful ecological trips and stuff like that, like, you know, eco tourism. And if the forests start to change and then we see all this diversity lost and so on, then it could affect that industry. Also, we have international conventions in the protection of biodiversity. We know biodiversity is the biggest treasure of humanity right now, and we need to protect. So when I talk, for example, and we are facing loss of diversity from the very bottom of the ecosystem that can just make all the ecosystem fall as dominant pieces, right? So we could be dealing here with a massive scale planet-wise of losing a lot of organisms, okay? That's illegal. And it's already been proved. So I've been talking with many friends of mine that they are also PhD in ecology. They teach in famous universities in the United States. in Europe, and their frank advice is, why are you putting money in doing this research when this has already been proved beyond any doubt? And it's been proved so much that there is not only local regulations that prohibit this, and is punishable by the law with jail, going to jail, okay? But also international agreements in protection of biodiversity. You should not be spending your money in trying to prove these people that are asking you for proofs because they haven't read the law, when the law is there. If there is the law, it's because there is already enough proof. So in the case of Colombia, for example, people that is doing and introducing and using these microbes, they are violating the rights of other communities to a healthy environment. That's one of the first things. They are violating several articles in the Constitution of our country, and they could go to jail. They are punishable. This is an infraction that is punishable with jail. So they could. So that's another thing. When we were talking the last one about rosters and so on, bringing this to our countries, they could end up putting the same farmers they want to help in jail because they are the ones that become the violators of the local law.
Right.
Okay. And let's say nobody goes to jail. Let's say we are friends and we pass it. At the end, me as a farmer using that, I'm no matter what making a bad to my neighbor, because those microbes are not going to stay in my land. They are going to go to my neighbor's land, and it's going to affect his capacity to produce coffee to sustain his family. And if he ends up only producing commercial coffees, then he's never going to get out of poverty. So I'm taking him the opportunities, or her the opportunity, to overcome poverty too. And there is a hoax, and I'm sorry to talk about this because it's something that we didn't talk. When we talk, for example, in our research, we did a very careful research using commercial yeast. And we did different things. So we saw how wild fermentation, which is the one that we usually do with all the microbes, one using a commercial yeast, one using koji, one using the introduction of other exotic microbes, and one using isolated microbes. What we saw, particularly in the commercial yeast, is that it was the experiment that has more variability between all the research units.
Okay.
And then introducing this to the market as the solution to inconsistency in coffee cup. But when we did the research very carefully, it was extremely inconsistent in cup. So if it shows inconsistent in units of 10 kilos that are made properly in a coffee lab, and all of them taste differently, don't tell me that this is going to give me consistency for 5 tons of coffee or 10 tons of coffee that I'm going to process in different days. It's not going to happen. So commercial yeast are actually the sale point number one in our research, proved to be wrong.
It doesn't make sense.
You know, it doesn't make sense.
No.
And it can cause like huge, crazy ecological things, you know?
Yeah.
As a matter of, for example, in the same experiment, it was also the one that scored the lowest. It only scored 84 points, when if you do careful fermentation that is wild with your microbes, it will give you 86 points very easily. You just have to be careful and control some things. And I think we are getting a lot of farmers into that point now that we are teaching them processing. So it's just question of doing it. But there is like this marketing rush to get something different always that is making people crazy, and is this kind of new gold fever which everybody goes behind, you know? So but the implications are worse. So yeah, in terms in legal things, I think there is enough evidence for people to start to be sued, and local authorities to enforce law and start to act in this open violation to regulations for a healthy environment.
Andres Felipe, I can't thank you enough for, first of all, coming on the podcast and talking about this so openly. I know that there are people who don't like that you talk about this, and you don't do this at no risk, because people lose money when you get in the way of them having the freedom to do whatever they want at the cost of other people. And when you get in the way of people's earnings, even when it's for a good reason, that makes them angry, and it especially makes big business angry. And so I know that there's a cost to you to have these conversations, and yet you insist on having these conversations nonetheless. And so I tip my hat to you, sir. And I'm grateful that you came on this podcast to talk about this. And for anyone else that is thinking of having a conversation with Andres Felipe, don't hesitate, because we need to get the word out about this. We need to stop this fad-driven reasons for doing these kinds of processing methods. We need to have that stopped until we understand the impact that it has on coffee producers' long-term viability and sustainability. So thank you, sir. And let people know, where's the best place for them to find you online?
Well, you can find us. My company is called Colors of Nature. Mm-hmm. We have presence in Colombia, Costa Rica, United States, and Japan. Mm-hmm. And just to clarify that, I know there is a lot of people telling me to not talk and not speak about this, which is kind of strange to me, especially because I'm from Colombia and I know what happens when you talk about things that other people don't. But I don't think I'm getting into anybody's business. I think this is like a call that those that have the means to do serious research in biotechnology should help our industry actually to develop in the good way, and that is to find out the beautiful frontiers of local microbes in producing amazing coffees, and not to destroy them, not get the chance of those microbes to shine and to actually provide for the farmers that are growing coffee under so beautiful circumstances, okay, like in those beautiful tropical lands that are just full of beautiful microbes. So I think that's what we need to do. I think this is a call for everybody today. Let's calm down a little bit. Let's not ask farmers to go faster. Remember, they don't have money to do research in microorganisms. There is people like me and other people that is trying to research on it. You know, why is the frenzy of having it right now causing like ecological disaster? There is no need for that. I think we're on the way of, exploring those unseen frontiers of beautiful coffees, not only for the coffee drink itself, but also for, coffee cascara, coffee drinks, many things that we can do now that we are getting into looking to the microbiology of food, of coffee, that is going to bring a lot of beautiness in the future and a lot of money for everybody. So it's more like to be patient, and I know if we cooperate in the right way, we will be able to open amazing doors for everybody.
And the irony of this happening from a big part of the industry that also blow the trumpet of being anti-colonialistic. It's ironic that the people who were saying
yeah, I think that the argument is destroying itself. I mean, you cannot
right. Because it's colonialistic to do this.
Like what do you mean I want to be anti-colonialist, but I'm asking people to do what I said with things that don't belong to them and transform and actually probably kill their environment and things like that. Let's remember that you don't need to know the law to infringe the law.
Yeah.
Okay. And in this case, there are clear international treaties and agreements of protection of biodiversity that at some point, and we are now exploring this with some lawyers, it could be a transnational crime that could be probably have some implications on that. So I don't know how far the lawyers are going to go with this, but there are a lot of amazing lawyers that really feel is the need of this generation to protect the life of our planet for the future generations.
Yeah. How exciting.
Not only from global warming, and let's not underestimate the magnitude of the coffee industry for the planet, because coffee is the most widespread crop in the world.
Yeah, beautiful. So on that note, thank you again. This has been a real honor and a real privilege to have you on this podcast. Come back again. I really want to continue the conversation as you develop more research. Would you do me the honor of signing off this episode for us, please?
Yes. So everybody, peace and love and peanut butter.
Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Bye, Andres Felipe. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.